Susan is a wonderful, wonderful medium, and she's a wonderful and gifted teacher and spiritual healer. But you can read all about that. Just go to Google and put in Susan Sanderford, and you'll read about her wonderful work. I just want to mention, because you might not find this written, is that she has one of the biggest hearts, one of the kindest hearts. She is truly a true person of service. And I have been moved over the years to see her generosity time and time again. The countless readings that she's done for many of the bereaved parents who are members of the prayer registry, I have never heard anything except not only raving reviews, but people who were so touched, Susan, by your kindness and your warmth. She's truly a true soul. And she's in this because, like many of us here, she loves spirit and she wants to share what she knows. Her husband, Milt, he's an especially nice person too. And I'll tell you just one story very quickly. Susan's very highly recommended by James von Prague. And he's written up in her, she's written in his books. And Milt said to me once, he said to her, well, honey, you know, now you can like charge the big bucks. And she said, that's not what it's for. She's truly of the heart, and she's a beautiful person. So let me introduce her to all of you who don't know her, and those who do, you already love her, Susan.
Thank you, Sherry. That was really lovely. You're going to make me a little teary-eyed, and I'm sorry Milt's not able to join us here, my husband, and you'll hear a little bit about him in this presentation. He's 88 years old, and he doesn't hear very well. So this would be very difficult for him, but let me tell you, he's a big force behind my spiritual awakening and our work, and I couldn't do what I do without Milt. So I do want you to let you know, he's in the room over there, but he's not able to participate. So he's a lovely soul as well, and our work, we think we came together from a past life to finish some work this lifetime. And when we found each other, it was amazing. So I'll talk a little bit about that. But the topic today is about fundamentalism, Christianity versus spirituality. And the reason I want to share this topic is because I come from a fundamentalist Christian background. I was born and raised in a fundamentalist Christian family. And those of you that don't know what fundamentalist Christianity is pretty much a belief system that you find God through reading the Bible. That the Bible is God's word, and that's how you find God, and you study the Bible, and that's the main focus around it. Now, I will say that I was very happy I was raised that way. Really, when it comes down to it, it was a very, very safe environment. You know, when I think about it now, I think, gosh, you know, what if I was raised in a family of, you know, that fought all the time and were alcoholics or were mean or were abusive and those kind of things. I think I would be a different person today. So I'm very thankful for those roots. But I also think that you can grow beyond them. And that's what happened with me. So in 1993, I sat down on the couch and I said, God, where are you? I pray, I read my Bible. I've gone to Bible school. I went to Bible school for 4 years. I taught Sunday school. I mean, I was involved in church in a major way. That was just a part of our lives. And I can remember this was after I was married and I had 3 young boys. The oldest was 13, 11, and 9. And I was in a particularly unhappy marriage. Even though it was a Christian marriage, it was particularly unhappy. And I remember sitting down on the couch and I said, God, where are you? I pray, I read my Bible, I go to church, I teach Sunday school. I said, where's that God of miracles? Where's the God that parted the Red Sea? And then this thought popped into my head. And I go, you know what? I'm going to throw all that out the window, and God, I want you to show me what truth is. Little did I know that was the defining moment of my spiritual journey. Before, up to that point, I had been on a religious journey, which was something that was outside of me. Words written on text was outside of me. And that's not to say that God cannot speak to you through that, but it had no power for me. The way I'd raised had no power, and I was miserable, and I didn't know I was miserable. And so I made this invitation to God to be my teacher. Now, no bells or whistles went off that day. Nothing, no blinding light, nothing happened that day. But it was just this, you know what, I don't know what truth is, and God, would you show me? That particular moment in life, even though things didn't start happening until a little later, that is what opened what I call mystical and metaphysical experiences in my life. And by those mystical and metaphysical experience, I had never experienced them before. I was not born with a gift to talk to spirit. And I want to make that clear. A lot of people say to be a medium, you got to be born with some kind of gift and that kind of thing. That's not what happened for me. Never believed in it, never had one experience with spirit, never had one mystical experience until I made that decision to invite God to be my teacher. Now, by God, I want you to understand that it could be, you may have a different term for it. It may be divine spirit, it may be universe, whatever. It's the all that is that I had invited into my life. And I had no idea that if I did that, what was about to break loose in my life. But that's when all the metaphysical experiences started happening. And so I went on this search for God. I wanted to know God was real. I'd read about God, we prayed, but where's that presence in your life? Where was that presence of the divine in my life? And of course, being a fundamentalist Christian, I did the best thing I knew is I jumped into a Bible study. They were doing a Bible study called Experiencing God. And I want to share with you my first hearing spirit. And because I was in this miserable marriage, I was praying for God to heal the marriage. And I was at this Bible study talking to someone there about wanting to heal this marriage. And I clearly heard this voice in my head that says, you have to go on your journey whether your husband goes or not. And it was such a light bulb that went off for me because I was waiting for him. I wanted him to go on this journey to find God with me, and he wasn't interested. He even said, I don't even like who you're becoming, because you're looking for God or you're trying to figure out what's real or not. And that was such a release for me. And I think that's a really important point for anybody listening here. You have to go on your journey whether anybody else believes you or not. Whether anybody else understands what you're experiencing or not, you have to go on that journey. So that was my very first, and I wouldn't say it was an audible voice, but it was definitely so clear in my head, you have to go on your journey whether your husband goes or not. And that was, again, another turning point in my journey where it was like, oh, I can let go, because I had done everything I could to heal that marriage. And I was on this search for God, and I wanted to, wanted him to go, and he just wasn't going to go. So several months after that, my husband decided his job was in jeopardy, and he decided to buy this little newspaper. And of course, because I have the graphic design ability and work for a newspaper, I knew I was going to end up running it. And he was just adamant, we need to do this because I'm going to lose my job. And, he was so adamant that we were going to buy this little newspaper. So I'm driving down the road in my little minivan, just bawling, saying, God, please, please don't let this happen. I don't want to do this. I don't want to, I don't want to take responsibility for a newspaper. I don't want to do this. And this was my second metaphysical experience. And I hear this audible, now this was audible, audible, booming male voice. And, I'm just bawling. And it says, it was behind me, and it goes, do not be afraid. I will be with you. And I flip around in the car to see who was with me. And it said it again. Do not be afraid. I will be with you. And this peace just melted over me, just melted over me. And I can remember going home and, because the Bible was where my connection was at the time, reading the story of Jesus walking on the water, and and could just see Jesus say, come, walk through this storm, it's going to be okay. Sure enough, next day he signed the papers for the newspaper. He got a new job, and guess who was running the newspaper? Me. And but I was committed to it, because this peace had come over me, that this voice, which I could only say was the voice of God, just said, it's going to be okay, go on this journey. So we purchased the newspaper, and so that was my second metaphysical experience, and this all happened with a matter of, I would say, 5 or 6 months. So as I'm running this newspaper and barely knowing what I was doing, trying really hard, I happened to get an invitation through a fax at that time, because this was 26 years ago, to join a Make-A-Wish Foundation Celebrity Mascot Olympics. And there was this gentleman by the name of Milt Sanderford. And so I decided that, you know what, I'm gonna go to that. And I went to that and met Milt, and he sort of showed me the ropes, because I was the new girl in town. And we quickly became best friends. I mean, it was just like an instant recognition, even though I didn't know it was an instant recognition. You know what I mean? And he showed me the ropes, and we had a really great time. He showed me, what to take pictures of and that kind of thing, because I was new at the newspaper business. And I thought, well, this is really cool. So the next day after that event, I got another fax. He must have liked faxes at that time, so which was really interesting. But I got a fax that says, do you need an editor? And I said, well, yeah, I'm running this paper by myself. And he says, well, why don't I come over and we'll talk about it? And so he came over the next day, and we talked about him becoming our editor. And I said, well, this is really great, but I can't afford anything. And we talked about, shared with him about my spiritual journey. And I said, well, I really can't afford you. And he says, well, I'll take it. He had been feeling that he was done where he was with the job that he was, and he felt really strongly wanted to get back into the newspaper business, and he wanted to come join me doing this little newspaper. And I said, sure, anybody that's going to come work for me for free, go for it. So that is how I met Milt. I'm still married to my husband at the time, and I'm still trying to think about healing my marriage, but I'm going on my spiritual journey, and I let go of him, whether he's going to heal or not, or whether he stopped drinking. I just kind of let go of all that. So anyway, just to back up a little bit, in January of 1994, I can remember a distinct event when I realized that my husband, what I had with my husband was not love. And I won't go into that because it's such a long story, but it was just this realization, oh, this isn't what love is. And I can remember after that experience saying, okay, God, what is love? How can I serve you if I don't know what love is? Okay. And then within the months, that's when we bought the newspaper, and Milt came on as editor. And as Milt came on, we became really good friends. And he's the one that first introduced me to the concept that you can talk with spirit, or people who have passed over. And he shared with me his story, because we had become good friends and I really trusted him. He shared with me a story of his communicating with his wife, Mary Jane, who had passed over. Now remember, I'm coming from a fundamentalist Christian background where this is a no-no. You don't do this stuff, this is of the devil, But because it was Milt, and I really trusted him, he shared how he had connected with a trance medium by the name of Hester B. Jackson, and he had reconnected him with his wife, Mary Jane, who died at age 31 of leukemia. And I thought, well, that's really interesting. So out of the blue, I thought, as we were having this conversation, I thought, well, then I wonder how my grandfather is doing. And that night I had the most amazing dream. In the dream, it was this and a lot of you have had dreams like this. I was walking into a morgue. It was like it was real. There was my grandfather's old dead body lying on the table. I walk up to it, he sits up and transforms into this most beautiful looking young man with just brilliant light. And he just smiles at me. And I knew in that moment that was my grandfather coming to visit me saying, I'm okay. Now that's my first ever experience, you know, with communicating with spirit. And again, fundamentalist Christian, for me to open up to something like that was really, really interesting. And I knew, okay, wait a minute. I was always taught that you can't communicate with spirit. You're not supposed to. And yet clearly this had just happened, you know. So then I thought, well, let's try this again. And I thought, well, let me ask my grandma, you know, come visit me in a dream. And I didn't get a dream. And it was about 2 weeks later that I got my dream. And all this because Milt shared with me, he connected with Mary Jane when she had died. And in the dream, she was sitting across from a picnic table with me. And I recognized in the dream that was my grandma. I go, Grandma, how you doing? Now, I always laugh at this statement because if in my belief system, if anybody was going to be in hell, it was going to be my grandmother. She was a hard old woman. I can't even go into it, but it was a volatile relationship with grandma and her. And we just never, you know, we thought, yeah, that's where she'll end up. However, she's sitting across the table from me and she goes, I'm doing just fine. And I want you to know I'm making sure your angels get fed and I'm making sure you kids get fed. And I knew she meant me, my brother, and my sister, and my angel. Now that made so much perfect sense because my grandmother owned a restaurant all her life. And that's how she showed her love, was by cooking. All right. And then I woke up. So that was my second connection with people who had passed over. Okay. So this opened a world that there had to be a lot more than what I was being taught in my fundamentalist belief, and because of these dream experiences. And I thought, well, this is really cool. So that sort of started me exploring communicating with spirit. So that, I would say that Christmas, and we're talking, this all took in about a year's time. That Christmas, Milt and I, you know, we worked several months together on the newspaper and became really good friends, talked about all kinds of subjects and my spiritual awakening and me trying to heal my marriage and him telling me how much he loved being a bachelor and living on the lake. And so it never occurred to me, you know, or him, that there was a deeper connection between the two of us. So he went away at Christmas time. I had a miserable Christmas because my marriage was just, you know, unhappy. And when he came back after Christmas, we went out to breakfast to talk about the paper. We often did meetings like to go get breakfast and that kind of thing. And he said, you know, I said, you know, I had a really miserable Christmas. I said, you know, I just don't think anybody's ever loved me for being me. And in his very brotherly way, he put his hand on my hand. He says, I'll always love you for being you. And then I said to him, you know, when you were gone at Christmas, that's the first time I ever missed anybody. And at that moment, it was like a bag had pulled off my head. And I go, I didn't say this out loud, but I sucked in. I said, oh my God, this is what love is. I was stunned, absolutely stunned. And it was a year to the day, and I'm getting goosebumps now, that I had asked God to show me what love was. And it was the exact year today, January 16th. So we have an anniversary coming up. I always say January 16th is our anniversary, is when God showed me that Milt was brought into my life to show me what God's love was. We went back to the office. I gave him a quick little bear hug, and we never did that. I always did these little respectful side hugs, and I ran home. I got my Bible and I read 1 Corinthians 13. And if anybody's ever read that verse, but it talks about love is patient, love is kind, love is not envy, it does not boast, it is not arrogant, it is not rude, it doesn't insist in its own way, it's not irritable or resentful. And I'm going, that's Milt. Oh my God, that's Milt. And the more I read it, it was like God, I realized God had brought him into my life so I'd know what love was. Because how can you serve God if you don't know what divine love is, if you don't know what it is? And never in my wildest dreams would I thought would come through another person. Now, again, I never thought, oh gosh, this is going to be a relationship. I never thought that at all. It was like God answered my prayer. And, as I read that particular verse, where it got down to, it talks about how all these things will pass away. And, so now faith, hope, and love abide. Those are the three things that abide, but the greatest of these is love. And it was like a spiritual awakening in that moment. My heart just, of course, I didn't tell Milt what had happened because I didn't quite know what to do with the information. But all I know is I couldn't sleep all night. And there was this beautiful full moon that night, just incredible full moon. And I called Milt and said, you got to go look at the moon. You got to go look at the moon. And, and so he had a clue something was going on. So the next day I went into work and Milt knew something was going on. So he knew he had to be the first person that I saw when I walked in the office. And the minute I saw him, I started boo-hooing, just sobbing. He thought someone had died or something, and he put his arms around me and I just cried into his shoulder. And finally, when I could get composure, I said, God brought you into my life so I'd know what his love is. And he said the most profound thing that I've ever heard anybody say. And he said, I know. He just knew it in that moment. Within 3 days, I asked my husband to move out. Why would I not choose love? And that's what started my spiritual journey. It opened my heart. Not only did it, because it opened my heart, it blew everything open, all my chakras from my heart up. Before I'd been living in my chakras from my heart down, the material world, that kind of thing. And when your heart is open through love, divine love, it opens your connection in very deep ways with the divine and with everything along the way, So I always like to say I went looking for God and I got everybody else along the way. But because Milt had so much, background, he sort of came in an awake being, and he's got his own story that maybe you could read about sometime. But, we've been together pretty much 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I go off to work at times and that kind of thing, but it definitely was a God moment, a God awakening moment. And so when you invite divine love into your life, you're going to get it. It may not come through another person, but it will happen. So what I was able to do was I was able to let go of the idea that you had to read about God to know God, but God could be experienced. And that experience of spirit is what became my teacher through the years. And I learned how to connect in. And actually, I got trained by a medium that Milt knew. So when Milt's wife died, he connected with Hester B. Jackson. She is a trance medium, and she connected Milt with him. And he told me the story, and through her, his guide said they would work together one day. But she died a couple of years later. Well, after Milt and I came together, that's when I really started exploring connection with spirit, connection with God, with meditation, that kind of thing. And I thought, well, let me try. And of course, I got my interest in being a medium because Milt's 24 years older than me. And I thought, I want to make sure I can connect with him after he dies. Milt always laughs at that. He says, I can hardly wait, and that's what my interest in seeing if I could connect with spirit. And so when I meditated and asked if anybody was there, the first name that came through was Hester B. Jackson. The medium that Milt knew 11 years earlier that had passed came into my life and trained me as a medium from the other side. And it came true that she said they would work together one day, but we didn't know it would be with her in spirit. So that's how I got trained as a medium and just connecting. But my first experience of how do I know it's really you, Hester? And she said, well, there's 12 cans of food in your pantry. Now, has anybody ever counted their cans of food in their pantry? Do you know right now how many cans of food you got? I went and there were 12 cans of food in my pantry. And I said, I want more proof. And I hear, there's 32 bath towels in your house. So here I am like a mad woman counting all my bath towels to see. And sure enough, there were 32 bath towels in my house. And I said, well, I want more proof. And she says, well, there's 20 pennies on your mantle. One of the kids must have put it up there. And sure enough, there were 20 pennies. I can't remember exactly how many there were, 22 or something. And there were 22 pennies on. And I go back, I want more proof. And she said, no, you either believe it or you don't. And that's what surrendered me into spirit and connecting in and meditating and learning how to connect with spirit. Now, it was a long journey, I should say. But what I've learned through the years and our work together through years, that the goal of the spiritual journey isn't necessarily connecting with spirit, but what spirit has taught me, it's about becoming love, about carrying the highest amount of divine love in your being and expressing that in the world in whatever you do, whether you're a medium or whether you're whatever you do in life. God's presence exists in all things. And so what I learned, the difference between fundamentalist Christianity and spirituality is fundamentalist Christianity was about studying about God, and spirituality is about experiencing and knowing God. And because I went to the top, and by top I meant because I went to source, because I went to God, I got everything else along the way. I was able to communicate. It opened the door to communicate with people who had passed over, with angels, with divine beings. I've had major mystical experiences with Jesus and Mother Mary and other beings that literally came through with such powerful love. It was transforming. And so my goal when I work with people is not only to connect them with their loved ones, but to help them recognize how loved they are, just as they are where they are in their journey. And my work with Mother Mary has always been about teaching me to love me. When you invite these divine beings into your life, she teaches you how to love you. And as you learn to love you, you can manifest more of your divine love in the world. So the spiritual journey is about that invitation to spirit to come clean you out, to heal you. The way they taught it to me, it's kind of like the old Drano commercial, you know, where you have a pipe, you got hairballs stuck in the pipe, and the water's trying to flow through and it can't, so you have to pour the Drano in. Well, you're the pipe. The hairballs are your wounds, your unhealed parts of yourself. The water is your divine self that you were created to be, trying to flow through you, but it gets filtered through all your hairballs, all your wounds, all your unreleased emotions. And the Drano is nothing more than divine spirit, the holy breath that you invite into your being, say, would you come clean out my hairballs? And so that's the process they took me to. I had to look at all my dark parts and all my pain and all my unhealed stuff to clear out my hairballs. You know, the church wants to call them sin. You know, in reality, they're just mistakes to be corrected, or misbeliefs about self, or those kind of things. You know, I remember an experience with Jesus, and I happened to be reading A Course in Miracles, and I hear this voice that says, Susan, you are not sin. You never have been. You never will be. You only thought you were. And I go, oh, you mean it was just a belief system? Yeah, it was just a belief system in the whole sin, death, hell thing. It was never real. You only thought it was real. And it was so liberating. My encounters with Mother Mary, again, and that's another long story, and we don't have time because I know we're pushing time here. But my encounters with her, one of my favorite messages she brought through to me that just says it all in a nutshell about the spiritual journey is, my dearest child, you are the miracle you have been seeking. You are the heart you want to find. You are God's gift to the world. You have been created as divine. You are my heart. I am yours. There is nothing separating the two. You are my beloved child. My gift to you is you. And isn't that's what the whole spiritual journey is about, is finding your own divinity. You are a thought of God. God thought of you. And whether you have loved ones in spirit or whether they're all divinely loved, whether they lived a tragic life or a perfect life, doesn't matter. They are loved. They are an aspect of the divine. You would not be here had God not thought of you. So as you move forward in the spiritual journey, what you come to understand is we're moving out of the age of what I call patriarchal religion, or the one God religion, you know, that there's one God. And as you move into the experience of God, you come to understand that there is only God and it exists in all things. And you can find the presence of the divine in Christianity, in Hinduism, in any other belief system that you are called to experience. The presence of the divine exists in all those things. But when you invite the presence of the divine to be your teacher, that's when all heaven breaks loose. And you start connecting and experiencing God in all things, whether it's communication with a loved one, whether it's communication with an angel, whether it's finding a heart rock at the perfect time right below your feet when you're feeling really bummy, and the universe will nod back to you that says, I'm here, I understand, I'll get you through this. Another thing I learned as I had to go through my own clean my hairballs and my own pain, one thing that Spirit has taught us, that this is the pain and suffering planet. And we learn through pain and suffering. And as long as we're running from the pain and suffering, we're not going to learn our lesson. The analogy they often give me is that, what do flowers grow in? Manure, right? Dirt and manure. And you get buried in the dirt and manure, and that's how you grow. That's how we grow as souls in this lifetime, getting buried in the dirt and manure. So when pain arises, whether it's through the death of a loved one or through a bad experience, you have to invite it in for a cup of tea and see what it has to teach you. And in my greatest pain moments of cleansing and healing my own unhealed wounds, that's when I've had my greatest God moments in life. The absolute greatest, where they didn't change the event, but they changed how I saw it. And they brought me love so deep and so abiding that I knew that no matter what I did in life, whether it was perfect or not, I was loved. So the biggest message, I guess, to hear today is that it is love that heals. Divine love opens the heart, opens your connection with the divine. And if you've lost loved ones, you know, most people, I always encourage them, yeah, it's really great to talk to people who passed over, but go higher. Go to the heart of God. Connect with the heart of the divine source itself. It will be your teacher. And you will move beyond the pain of the loss of that loved one. You'll move beyond, you'll start understanding the role, the purpose of your soul, you know, what you're here to do. Because without that love, it really means nothing, you know. And not that it means nothing, I mean, it doesn't have the power behind it. It doesn't have the power behind it. It is love that heals. So in whatever you do, when you express that love, that divine love, you clean yourself up, and you know, you invite Spirit to clean you out, and you vibrate at the level of love, you are changing the world. You know, it's not about changing the outer world. It's about changing the inner world, because you know, as the Bible says, that the kingdom of heaven is within. And that's where you find it, within you. So that's my journey from fundamentalist to spirituality. So I'm open to questions now.
Susan, that's absolutely fascinating. Now, before I just throw it open to the people to ask questions, a couple of things I'd like to ask you. What advice would you give to anybody who is moving from fundamentalism, or who's still in a fundamentalist family or whatever? um, about coping with that hostility when you first start connecting with spirit. Did you get any pushback from your family or church?
Yes, a little bit of pushback, because here, God brought Milt into my life. He was a lot older. My family was freaked out about that. They thought I'd gone to hell in a handbasket. And so that was really, really hard. I think probably the best thing, to be honest, is just keep your mouth shut and go on your journey, because it's not our job to change anybody else. It's only our job to love them. And had I known that at the beginning, I think it would have been a little bit easier, because, here I'm all excited and all these wonderful mystical experiences are happening, but it goes right over their head because they aren't there yet. Their heart's not open. They're not awake yet. So what you have to do is you go on your journey and you just go on it very quietly. You don't have to announce it to the family and the world. And of course, I had to leave my church pretty much right away, because, divorce is a no-no, and I left my husband and that kind of thing. And there was no way they were going to understand this was a God event, not a Susan event, because this wasn't what I was looking for. Wasn't where I was heading. It happened to me, not something I went searching for. Only because I sat down on the couch and said, God, where are you? And that took me on the journey. So people who are in a fundamentalist family, what I'm hearing from spirit is the most important is asking spirit to bring you to peace about where you are in your relationship with your family. Ask spirit to bring you to peace. Not how do I change them? How do I convince them that I'm right? How do I prove to them that you can talk to spirit? Just, bring me to peace. And you go on your journey, and then you find a new family that believes what you believe, a new family that understands or resonates at the level that you understand. And then you just be polite and nice to your family. I can remember when I finally announced to my family, who are all still fundamentalist Christian, believe it or not, that I was a medium. I wrote in a Christmas letter, I mailed it, and I had a migraine for a week. And not one of them wrote me back, called me back, said anything. Didn't say a word, because they didn't know what to do with that information. It went so far over their head. And now I have a really good relationship with my family. My mom passed away August of this year, and she had dementia really bad. And 2 months before she died, she was in memory care. I was in sort of a half awake, half asleep state. And I heard this voice that says, I didn't want to leave without saying goodbye. And there was a spirit standing by my bed. And I reached out my hand and recognized it was my mother. And it was so real. So it had to be an out of body experience. She had to be out of her body. And she came to visit me all the way from Tennessee to Colorado. And she crawled into bed, and we talked. And I said, go see Dad, go into the light. And I told her how much I loved her. And and then all of a sudden she just transformed into this new little baby, like she was born again. And then the dream ended, the experience ended, because it really wasn't a dream. And so I was able to say my goodbyes, because I couldn't go visit her because of COVID. And then she passed away August 5th, and I couldn't go home, because of COVID. And it's a good thing, because 5 of my family members got COVID, from getting together during her passing. But 6 days later, I had a very, very vivid dream of my mom. And I turned around, and she's standing in front of me, and she looked absolutely radiantly beautiful, and she just smiled at me. And my dog woke me up, so I didn't get to ask her anything, and I was really upset. That was all I needed. That was all I needed. That, hey, so ask spirit to bring you your tribe that believes the way you believe.
Yes, Susan, thank you very much. My question is, did you feel it was when you were moving from fundamentalism to spirituality, it was a moving from fear to love?
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. And it took a long time for me to clear my hairballs and that fear that I was doing something wrong or not doing it right, or was this not of God? Was it of God? But every time I kept looking into it, only good came out of it. And so it took a long time.
Hi, Susan.
Thank
I'm very, very new to mediumship and the spiritual world, although I do have connections frequently. But you were speaking of dreams, and that, or actually visitations. My mom also transitioned this August, and it was unexpected. And she comes to me as visits because I remember them so clearly. But there's a house that she was in and that my other relatives in spirit are in, but it felt like I was there before. Does that happen where you are familiar with a place? I know I was never there, but I'm familiar with this home.
Yeah, and you might want to look into what I call out-of-body experience. Most of us travel out of our bodies when we sleep. Most of us do not remember that, okay? So we travel out, and so I'm sure you've gone to visit your mother plenty of times since then, or your relatives that you love, but that's very, very common to travel outside of your body.
Yes. Hi, Susan. Thank you for sharing today. I love your story. Wow, there was so much to it. And I could identify on so many levels with the, the raising. I was raised Catholic, not fundamentalist, but there was a lot of fear and guilt, punishment, sin, all of that stuff. And any type of, phenomena was, or, spiritual interaction was considered, not good, or, shut it down. It's the devil's work kind of thing. So, I could really identify with that, with your history. And I like how you described the hairballs and the the Drano and cleaning out and the healing process. That's pretty interesting. And I just want to say that when you were telling your story about your mom coming to visit you, when she was actually still alive, but coming before she passed to visit you in your consciousness, and then she came again after she passed. I just heard that she'll be back again. So,
Oh, good. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but thank you.
Okay. Hi, Susan.
Hey, Jen.
How do you know that you have it in you to become a medium?
I believe everybody has it in you to become a medium. I don't believe it's anything for, everybody has, if you work on your spiritual journey, invite spirit in, put that out as your intention, your mediumship abilities will awaken. That's one of the things I like to do, is train people how to be mediums. Myrnie's been in my class, and once you realize how easy it is to do, all you got to do is get your ego out of the way. Everybody has the ability to do it.
Okay, Susan, I was just wondering if you could talk, if there's time, about the garden that you're building, or if you have built it.
Right. Okay.
Because I want to visit it.
Oh,
I want to
okay.
go there.
Great. Okay, so the garden is complete. This is our mission with Mother Mary. Mother Mary asked us to create a healing center called Casa de Santa Maria, which is House of Mother Mary. I had some great experiences with Mother Mary. I don't know if you guys know of Medjugorje, but I was called to go to Medjugorje, where she has visited with, where she appeared to 6 Bosnian children. Very powerful place if you've never been there. I was called to go there, ended up having to go all by myself. But the first day I was there, I was praying and meditating in front of her statue and saying, God, why am I here? I'm not Catholic. What am I doing? I hear this audible female voice that says, you've invited Jesus into your heart, now you're going to invite me. And boom, I totally understood the Divine Mother. So the role with the garden, Mother Mary's garden, it's eventually to be a retreat center where she's promised her healing presence and her holy helpers to work on you energetically. So it is a healing place in all kinds of level, physical, spiritual, mental. The garden is complete. It has 2 labyrinths, a medicine wheel. Matter of fact, I've got a good little video that I can somehow send to Wendy or somebody, and she can send it out to everybody, that shows you what the garden looks like today. It has a stone circle. It has a ceremonial fire pit, a medicine wheel. We have a little prayer chapel. We've raised all this money just from the people that have been benefited from our work together, and understand our mission with Mother Mary. But the role is to introduce her love to the Divine Mother. It's mainly the Catholics that understood her role. But she's a powerful lady, let me tell you. And when Mama says to do something, you do what Mama says.
I have a special connection with Our Lady of Lourdes.
Mm-hmm.
Such a healing moment when she appeared to Bernadette.
Mm-hmm.
And that statue that you've erected, which I saw on your website, is just a beautiful statue. So I hope to go there someday and perhaps we'll meet.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And we're here, we're living out here. We raised the money to have the house out here. So we're living here on the property, and we're just letting it develop as organically as Mother Mary wants it to develop. So our website is casadesantamaria.org if anybody wants to go visit that.
Yeah, I just wrote a thank you very much for sharing this inspiring story. We've witnessed stories like yours in our journey too. Sure. And it's very interesting. Most of them have some connection with Mother Mary, specifically with Mother Mary. Very stories similar to yours that were very connected to praying directly to Mother Mary and having some intervention in terms of life-changing situations and postures. So it was very interesting to listen to your story. Thank you very much for sharing.
When you said the part about like learning to love and everything, that reminded me of Robert Schwartz and his book, you know, Your Soul's Plan. And I just wondered if you believe in that soul plan.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You have a soul plan, what you've come to do, but nothing supersedes the fact that you're here to evolve your consciousness into love. I believe that your sole purpose is to become love. That's what you're here to do, is to evolve your consciousness into love. What you do with that love is your mission. And a lot of people get the mission and the purpose mixed up a little bit. But it's that becoming love and expressing that love in the world. And then once you're able to love yourself, which I think is 99.9% of the journey, is loving yourself exactly the way you are, warts and all. And once you love yourself, that's when your mission in life sort of unfolds of how am I supposed to express that love in the world. And there's a lot of people that think, well, you know, third dimensional job is not spiritual. But that's not necessarily true. God exists in all things. And if you're in a third dimensional job, you're meant to be there to love people, to serve people in that job that you're experiencing. So your purpose in life is to clear out your hairballs so that the divine essence of who you are, the divine love you're created to be, can flow through you. And then you start vibrating at that level, which reminds me of an experience I had with Jesus. And this has sort of been my mission in life. That mission will come to you. But I've worked on that, but I had a very vivid dream with Jesus. And in the dream, I was in a really stormy sea, and this hand pulled me up out of the sea, and I'm standing on the beach, and there in front of me is standing Jesus. And you would think if you got Jesus standing in front of you, you just want to ask him all these questions. And the only thing I could do was gasp my breath and go, oh, how beautiful. His presence was so stunning. I couldn't say a word. I couldn't think, because I was so stunned at the presence. And as soon as I said how beautiful, I was standing in this very, very dark place with a spotlight on me. And I knew this spotlight was God shining down on me. And as I'm standing in this spotlight, this really old, grumpy, bitchy lady just walks through in front of me, just complaining and bitching, and walks through. And then behind this little girl who was really heavyset in a tutu, who, you know, she didn't have the body to be a dancer, but she was being that. She danced through my light. And then it hit me, oh, you want me to love these people. And that's been my mission in life, is to love the unlovable, to love those that can't love themselves until they learn to love themselves. And that's part of my spiritual journey, is to show people and to teach them how to find divine love so it can transform their souls so they can see their own divinity.
Yeah, I'm just dealing with a lot of that, trying to love myself right now. And a Facebook friend of mine put out a thing this morning that said, I just got it that I am both very untogether and very together at the same time. And your whole story just reinforced that all the way through.
Period.
I wanted to thank you, Susan. I have had readings with you before, and you have helped me so much through my grief. And I just have enjoyed this session so much. And thank you.
Susan, if people are interested in coming out to the casa to visit you, what's the deal? Do they need to contact you first, or do you have people coming to stay, or what's the story?
Well, we have a little hotel in town. We don't necessarily have, we're working on, creating as a retreat center now, but the garden is certainly there and you're welcome to visit at all times. It's best to let us know if you're coming. And the only reason I say that is that Spirit has put me in a third dimensional job right now. They called me to do this. I'm the town manager in this little town here. So I would have to take time off to meet you, but that is our first priority. Weekends will work best. But anybody that's coming through, absolutely contact us. If you have the iheart2@mac.com, write Milt. Milt, you'll get to know Milt if you write him, and you'll be able to see what a lovely soul he is when you start connecting with Milt. He sort of like keeps track of all this stuff. So absolutely, the garden is open to anyone. Anytime, whether you let us know or not, you're welcome to come hang out. We get nice little notes that say, thank you for creating this place. It's so peaceful. You can really feel the incredible peace and the healing energy that has been created here. If you have an RV, let us know. You can park on the land.
Susan, I'm not the least bit surprised that this was such a wonderful talk. I could not agree with you more in our purpose here. And I just want to thank you for sharing your heart and your experience with everyone here today. You are a rare gift to all of us. Thank you, Susan, so much.
Thank you. Thank you.